Hey, and welcome back to the Deliberate Exchange. This is Chelsea. And now, today's episode is about being tired, like really fucking tired. Specifically, I've been thinking about the way I've been talking to myself about being tired. So I got back from the retreat that I was co-hosting with Christina about a week and a half ago, and I kept having this thought, like, I should be fine by now. Like, come on, Chelsea, get your shit together. It's been a week since you've got back. And then there was another part of me that was like, you were at a retreat, for crying out loud. Like, how hard could it have been? Even my father had remarked, like, as I was walking by him, I'm like, I'm going to go rest or nap or something on the Saturday after. And he's like, I thought you were at a retreat. And he didn't quite understand that I was co-hosting it. And it's pretty hilarious when I actually say that out loud, like how hard could it have been? Because I was working. Like, just because I wasn't hauling bricks or running a marathon or doing something that we would traditionally look at and say, holy shit, of course you're exhausted. Like, I don't think I was really accounting for the amount of energy that I actually spent at the retreat. And so that's what I want to talk about today, because I don't think I'm the only person who does that. I know that we are pretty good at respecting physical exhaustion. If you tell me that you ran a marathon yesterday, I'm not going to call you the next morning and be like, are you seriously still lying down? Of course you are. Your body did something tremendous. And if somebody spends 12 hours moving houses, we understand why they're exhausted. If you went for a trip and you were portaging through Algonquin, nobody questions whether you need to recover. But then emotional exertion or mental exertion, even relationally speaking, that amount of energy that it takes to be deeply present with other human beings, we suck at accounting for that. And I realized that I was doing the exact same thing to myself. So let me give you the context. I co-hosted a 4-day retreat north of Kingston with my best friend, Christina. It was amazing. Like, it really was beautiful. Amazing conversations, amazing women, amazing venue, amazing food. But we were basically on from 6 in the morning until 10 o'clock at night. And when I say on, I don't just mean that we're busy. There were 20 women there. There were meals and activities, logistics and schedules, like, obviously. But there was also a lot happening emotionally. Because of the way that Christina and I facilitate and format these retreats, women are having deep realizations. There's grief coming up. There is fear. There's a lot of vulnerability. There are big conversations happening. And there were moments where I'm sitting with someone one-on-one, and there were moments where I was holding somebody while she cried. And then I was facilitating breath work. I was coaching. I was listening. I was watching. I was paying attention to what was happening in the room and what wasn't being said in the room. Like, a lot of hyper attunement. And in between all that, Christina and I are, making sure that we're touching base and coordinating our next workshop or our next flow so that we're on the same page. And also in between that is the fact that I was working for my part-time job in HVAC. So I'm like literally context switching like mad. And then we would go to bed and wake up and do it again. And so we got home on Thursday afternoon, and Thursday night, I was very mindful not to sit down, because I knew that if I sat down, it would be really, really hard to do this, or like to get back up again. And Kev had a ticketed concert, so I wanted to go to that. So I went and picked up my mom and then drove out to the concert, listened to that, come back. And then Friday, and like this was like a good lesson learned for me, but Friday I had 4 back-to-back one-on-one clients, and then I facilitated breathwork on Friday night. So like, that was too much. I shouldn't have scheduled those one-on-one sessions. And at 8 p.m. on Friday night, I declared, I'm done, right? Like this was like the goal post that I was shooting for. From now until Sunday morning, I am recovering. I wasn't going to go do laundry. I wasn't going to catch up around the house. I wasn't doing all of the things that we sometimes call rest while we're still actually doing shit. I did restorative breath work. I had saunas. I napped. And the napping is interesting because I traditionally can't nap. And so like that might exemplify how tired I was because I was actually napping. I was just kind of laying around and doing as little as possible. Like I had this idea in my head that even though my step count for every day is 10K, I want to get as few steps as I can. And so the concept of rest, if you're still learning how to rest, is actually really fucking hard. Because even while I was doing it, there's this tiny voice in my head saying, okay, surely you've rested enough now. And then Sunday, we were on the road again. And then holiday Monday, I volunteered at the Celebration of Speed, which is something that I've been helping to organize for the last like 8 months or so. And I spent 11 hours at the racetrack in the full sun, surrounded by people, noise, and stimulation. And now here we are. So more than a week after I got home, I'm still tired. And I caught myself getting really pissed off about it. Why am I still tired? What's wrong with me? I should be back to normal by now. And then I thought, okay, like instead of arguing with the exhaustion, what if I actually got curious about it? What if I stopped looking at what I had done through the lens of physical output and actually took inventory of everything my nervous system had been carrying? And holy shit, that changed the conversation and how I related to myself. At the retreat, my nervous system was continuously tracking 20 women. I'm reading body language. I'm listening to tone. I'm watching breathing patterns. I'm actively regulating myself while helping other people regulate. And I'm making hundreds of tiny decisions that nobody actually sees. In my mind, I'm like, okay, do I step in here? Do I leave this alone? Does she need me? Does she need space? Is this person okay? Do I need to check on her later? What's happening over there? Where are we in the schedule? How much time do we have? I'm facilitating breathwork while also being responsible for the physical and psychological safety of the room with Christina. I'm leading, I'm teaching, I'm observing. And then I'm also remembering the conversations that I had earlier in the day. I'm oscillating between facilitator and coach and host and organizer and problem solver and caregiver. And then there are all these other things that seem so insignificant individually that we don't even count them. I'm not sleeping in my own bed. I'm not eating the way I normally eat. I traditionally eat a lot of meat and cheese. And this was a vegan retreat and it was like delicious food, but just not what my body is used to. And so I'm not getting enough protein. I was eating way more sugar and grains than my body is accustomed to. I didn't have any alone time, which I have naturally a lot of that in my life. And there was very little time where there wasn't another person around. And just to throw the cherry on top, I was in my luteal phase, which for me means that everybody already feels a little close to the surface. And so suddenly I'm looking at all of this and thinking like, of course I'm tired. Of fucking course. And this is the piece that matters beyond the retreat. Because how often do we do this? We account for one thing, like, okay, I didn't sleep well, or I've been busy at work, or the kids have been a lot. But we don't zoom out and look at the entire load, right? We lose that perspective. Maybe you're managing people at work. and your mom needs more help than she used to. And there's also something weird happening in your marriage. And you've got a decision hanging over your head that you haven't made yet. And one of your kids is struggling. And you're having financial conversations you don't want to have. And you've also been sleeping like shit. And you're trying to figure out what the hell you want to do with the next chapter of your life. But because you didn't run a marathon today, you look at yourself sitting on the couch at 7 o'clock at night and think, why am I so fucking tired? Because all of that is a lot. And maybe we need to get better at taking inventory of what I would call nervous system load. Not just what did I do today, but what have I been carrying? Emotionally, mentally, relationally, physically. What have I been anticipating? What decisions have I been making? Who have I been worrying about? Where have I been trying to stay composed? Where have I been monitoring other people's emotions? Are there conversations that I'm rehearsing in my head? What uncertainty am I living inside of? And where am I having to stay on for a lot of the day? Because all of those things require energy. And there's this physiological concept for what all of this is, and it's called allostatic load. I learned that and I was like, I geeked out on it. Essentially, it is the cumulative wear and tear that happens as our bodies continually adapt to stress and demand. And so I went down a rabbit hole, as one does, looking at research around people like physicians, psychotherapists, ICU nurses, first responders. And I will be very clear that I'm not comparing what I did at the retreat to those professions, but this is about people whose work requires sustained attention. It requires emotional labor, decision-making, and responsibility for other humans. And of course, it creates fatigue. Of course it does. Because recovery isn't only muscular. Your brain needs recovery. Your attention needs recovery. Your nervous system needs recovery. And I think that that's where I had been using the wrong measuring stick. I actually wondered at one point, like, was facilitating this retreat the equivalent of running a marathon every day? And no, metabolically, of course not. I'm not going to pretend sitting with someone's grief burns the same number of calories as running 42 kilometers. That's not the point. The better comparison for me is endurance. Because for 4 days, my nervous system had to remain highly available. And that's the phrase that keeps sticking with me. Highly available. And staying highly available is expensive. Not just emotionally, but biologically. And then there was another realization that I had. I kept counting Thursday as the beginning of my recovery. But Thursday wasn't really recovery. I went to a concert. And Friday wasn't recovery. I coached all day and facilitated breathwork. Saturday was the first day my nervous system actually got the message, okay, there's nothing required of you right now. But then on Monday, I went and spent 11 hours at the racetrack. So maybe I haven't been recovering for a week. I've been trying to recover in these little pockets between more output, which is different. And this is where we can be so fucking unfair to ourselves and brutal with ourselves. We decide how much recovery we should need based on how impressive our exertion looks like from the outside. If I had told you I hiked 80 kilometers over 4 days, you would probably not question why I needed to rest. But because what I was carrying wasn't a backpack, it was stories and emotions and responsibility and presence and other people's nervous systems, some part of me decided it didn't count in the same way. But it does count. Emotional labor is still labor. Co-regulation requires regulation. which is why every night at the retreat, I was very mindful to go to my room and do my breath work, do tapping to try and reset. Because holding space also requires capacity. And I'm very, very, like, the integrity of having energetic hygiene is very important to me. And all of this, like, capacity has to be replenished. And this isn't just about facilitators, coaches, or therapists. Maybe you are caregiving. Maybe you're leading a team. Maybe you're going through a divorce or someone you love is sick. Maybe you have quit drinking and you're learning how to exist in situations that you have spent 20 years navigating with alcohol. Maybe you're changing careers or parenting or grieving. Or maybe nothing particularly dramatic is happening, but there are 14 small things asking something of you at the same time. All of that counts too. And if we never learn to honor the energy that we expend emotionally, mentally, and relationally, we're going to keep wondering why we feel so fucking tired when our bodies haven't done anything that looks extraordinary. And that's the part I really want us to understand here. That not all exhaustion comes from what we carry literally in our hands. It comes from what we've been carrying in our minds, our hearts, our nervous systems, in the conversations that we've been holding, or the decisions that we've been making, or the people that we've been caring for, or even like the uncertainty we've been sitting inside. And then there's the version of ourselves we've been asking to keep showing up when there hasn't been much left in the tank. And so if you have been saying to yourself lately, why am I still so tired? Maybe don't answer that question with the same judgment that you're asking it in. Get curious. You can take out a piece of paper and you can write nervous system load. And underneath it, write down everything you've actually been carrying. Not just what you've been doing, but what you've been carrying. And I don't want you to edit it based on whether you think it should be hard. I don't want you to compare it to somebody else's idea of hard. Just tell the truth about the amount of energy your life has been requiring from you lately. And we all go through like different seasons of this. So like maybe right now isn't that like season for you, but maybe right now you are legitimately asking yourself if you're tired. But when you write all of that down, look at that piece of paper and then ask yourself again, does it actually make a lot of sense that I'm tired? Because maybe your body isn't asking you to push harder. Maybe it's asking you to stop arguing with the amount of energy you've already spent. And of course, because I'm still learning and growing, that's a conversation that I'm still having with myself. Because if we're only willing to honor exhaustion when we have something visible to show for it, we're going to keep overriding ourselves. Like we're going to keep waiting until we're completely depleted before we believe we've actually done enough to earn rest. The most compassionate thing we can do is stop measuring our need for rest by what other people can see, or even by what we can see. Your nervous system doesn't need you to prove that you're tired enough. It doesn't need a doctor's note. It doesn't need a fancy marathon medal. It doesn't need you to make a case for why you've earned an afternoon on the couch. It needs the opportunity to recover. And maybe your exhaustion makes perfect sense. You've just been measuring the wrong things. And so I'd love to hear are you tired? And are you asking yourself this question? Did this episode land? Are you allowing yourself to consider everything that you're currently walking through and extending a lot more compassion for maybe the toll that that's taking? I'd love to hear from you. You can reach out to me via socials. And of course, if you could share this episode, like, comment, subscribe, I would be greatly appreciated. So that this can get into the ears of others. And in the meantime, you can breathe it in, be deliberate, and please be good to yourself.